Hi and welcome to another Blades of Deceron Devlog, a medieval fantasy 2D fighting game with some light RPG elements. I'm about to bring some of Gladihoppers into this game by adding an arena tournament mode, but first I need to address the three major problems that the game is currently having. Starting with the battles, I've changed the way damage calculations work in order to speed things up. Armor can now only do damage reduction up to 50%. Then, getting hit when stunned always results in a critical hit. But since critical hits also cause stuns, receiving them has a cooldown based on the constitution skill, so that they can't be stacked. And finally, perfect blocks drain the opponent's stamina, which makes characters tired faster, which in turn results in them taking more damage. These changes now make it slightly faster to get to the end of the battle, but the next problem is that it needs to be made slower. Right now, one faction usually becomes the strongest by far pretty early in the game, which leads to a snowball effect where they manage to conquer most of the map before the player has even reached a somewhat high level. So to combat this issue, I'll make it so that factions are more likely to target enemies with a lot of locations, as well as making it so that the more locations they have, the less likely they are to want to conquer new ones. Theoretically, this should result in more of a stalemate, so I'll let the game play itself for a while to see what happens. Alright, I think that this issue is solved, since after about 30 years, which history agrees is a decent duration for a war, the factions look pretty much balanced. I've also added more spawn points for bandit factions so that they're more of a nuisance to the major factions, which I think contributed to them not having enough resources to always be conquering new locations. Now, regarding the lack of content, I've already begun to add more units, in particular civilians, to give the world some extra flavor. You'll find them wandering the map as well as being the dwellers in locations, and even though civilian units don't yet play a big role in the game, there's now at least a bit of an added visual variety when you traverse the overworld. But more importantly, I think for most players, are the warrior units and the troop trees that I promised in the last video. I finished the 4 major factions for the moment anyway, because I still have to add ranged and mounted units to the game, which will probably happen somewhere in 2031 if all goes well. But yeah, right now I am satisfied with the unit variety here. The more I work on this game, the more I realize that there's so much left to do before it's done. But after almost 3 years of spending, I'm kind of in a desperate need to start earning something from it as well. After deliberating for a while, I've decided to give this game the AAA treatment of just releasing it unfinished and fixing it later on in updates. First though, I'll address the issue that new players have had while I've been recording this devlog. That is, that there are no clear instructions on what to do early in the game. So my plan is this: I'll make starting scenarios that players can choose from when creating their character. For now, there will only be one, called Aspiring Gladiator. This scenario will start you off with an active quest that directs you to the town of Bastilon, where you are to meet with the arena master, who in turn instructs you to win the tournament in town. Since it's no easy task, he'll suggest that you get stronger by either practicing in the arena or by killing some of the nearby looters to the west. I made a radiant side quest for killing X amount of enemies that location leaders give you, so completing those will speed up progression.
1 hour later.
Once you manage to win the tournament, it's basically game over, but of course you can continue playing the campaign mode like usual. This is a tiny example of a main quest line, and I plan on expanding this scenario to include more arena tournaments, and of course add more scenarios, as well as more side quests that are available regardless of which scenario you choose to start with. Speaking of arena tournaments, in the last devlog I invited you all to create your own gladiators and post them to me on Discord so I could hold a community tournament. A big thanks to everyone who participated, and a special thanks to my Patreon and YouTube members who support the channel and everything I do. In the final we have Greeting Title versus Ptolemy of Myra, both using dual-wielded swords here, which I think this tournament has proven is currently the ultimate weapon loadout in the game. After a lucky survival, Ptolemy of Myra finishes off Greeting Title and becomes the champion. Blades of Deceron is out now on Android and iOS. All links are in the description. If you play the game, it would help me out a lot if you leave a review for it on Google Play or the App Store. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for 25,000 subscribers. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.